We're live. Welcome to the Dynasty WarGames.
We're live.
Oh. What is going
Welcome to the Dynasty WarGames.
What is going on right now? This is awful. Can you hear me? Oh, man. What on earth just happened?
Okay, I guess we're live. Technical difficulties there. Yeah, that's right on brand with the War Games. So anyways, hello, welcome to the latest episode of Dynasty War Games. I'm your host, Chad Mendoza. Jesse, unfortunately, couldn't be here with us tonight, but that's okay because here joining me tonight is my co-host, Mike Casper.
What's
new,
up?
Mike?
What's up, Chad? We lose Jesse and all technology goes out the window. You think
all hell
having to
breaks
rely
loose,
on the old guy, like, can't believe it.
I know. I'm like, I'm not quite sure what happened. I guess we'll figure that out next episode, or maybe we'll make the same mistake. Who knows? So, anyways, we're here to talk about trades, right?
We are here to talk about trades. But first, I got to do a quick shout out to my cadets at Texas A&M Army ROTC. They found out that I podcast now. So if this has the most views in Dynasty Warzone history, that would be amazing. But they're already starting to comment. So good to have y'all. And yeah, like and subscribe. There you go.
Nice. Yeah, glad all of you guys can join us for our, I guess, intro meltdown. That was great. I wish that didn't happen, but yeah, we move. So yeah, do you have any trades that you kind of want to talk about? Some personal trades that you made, or anything that you got going on?
Yeah, so I made a couple. I actually got my first two shares of Herbert this week. So I'm glad to get some Herbert with the new OC down there and Kellen Moore. Sorry, Cowboys fans. I'm sure some of my cadets are probably Cowboys fans listening. But one of them was a couple weeks ago before kind of the Lance news, I guess, of, hey, he might or might not be the starter, which maybe we can talk Lance later. But I got Herbert and Calvin Ridley, and I gave up Trey Lance, Garrett Wilson, and the 102. And this is in a start 11, all flex and 2 super flex.
Okay. Yeah. I like. I'm guessing that Lance Wilson 102 side is probably a rebuild.
It actually wasn't. It was he was 10th place, or yeah, I mean 3rd place. Sorry.
No. Oh yeah, as the 10th pick. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. I like that side, or your side actually. I think the safety of Herbert is something that in the super flex league you're always kind of just banking on having that one top tier quarterback, and I think at this point it's safe to say that Herbert is that guy. And I think Ridley's going to come into the season and come into some kind of form. I think who knows if he comes in as the same kind of player he was when he exited. And that was like a top 6, top 7 wide receiver. I doubt he reaches those heights again, but I don't think it's unrealistic to say he's a high-end wide receiver 2, maybe borderline wide receiver 1 at the end of the year. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. So, Garrett Wilson is a really good asset, giving that up, but I'm not a big believer in Lance. And, the 102. Who would you pick at the 102 if you kept the pick?
So this actually brings me to what I was watching tonight. There's a what is the name of it? I'm blanking the name of it. It's a new Manning podcast on ESPN Plus. It's like Path to the Draft or something like that. And they had Bryce Young on because Bryce Young was at the Manning Academy as a counselor this year. I don't know. I guess I'm spilling my beans now, and my cadets will hate this, but Bryce Young is my 102. I think if you say it's everything except for the height, and obviously the weight too, right? But he's getting hit by SEC guys. So, and he does a good job getting away from them as well. I think he's more mobile than people think. So Bryce 2 is my 102 right now. I don't know. I know that's going against the grain there. A lot of people like Stroud. So I guess we'll see where they go on draft night. What do you think?
Yeah, we're on the same page there. Bryce is my 102. And I like Bryce quite a lot. So I think that evens the trade out a little bit for me. But if you're going into the year and you're like, okay, I want to compete this year, I have a really good roster, and I'm trying to win it, then you can't argue with the Herbert side. So
Yeah, this was just some context. This was just a really interesting roster where we just finished the third year, and I tore it all down year one. So I had something like 27 picks this year. And so I've slowly built kind of a contending roster. I had injured pieces from last year left over, like Pitts and Brees Hall. I have Lamar Jackson. I've got Russell Wilson as well. And I've kind of slowly built it up to where it's actually kind of nice. I've got DK on there now.
nice.
Lots of really good pieces. And I still have the 106, 107, and 108 this year and 4 first next year. So it's been a slow build to finally be able to compete one year. So I'm hoping I can get that done this year.
Yeah. I think maybe if I believed in Lance a little bit more, I would slightly lean, the side that you sent with Lance, Garrett Wilson, and the 102. But man, I don't know. It's tough to believe in a guy that just hasn't played football in so long, and even since the beginning of his college career, he's played 18. I mean, no, like 22 games or something total, 23 games, 23 starts.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I think that's 5 years in 5 years now. So
yeah,
I mean that's pretty insane.
I think best thing for him now is probably to get traded right to like a Tennessee or somewhere to see what happens. I don't know. Maybe sit behind Russ, trade him to Denver. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that'll be the thing. If the Seahawks don't pick up another quarterback and they're going to stick it with Geno. But I mean, somebody's going to have to pay Lance is the thing. That contract's coming up soon.
I mean, he can't be expecting that much though when he hasn't played, right?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough situation. I don't think it's kind of a situation we haven't really seen before, especially with the little bit of game time that he's had in college, because it's not like a guy that started a whole lot of games coming out. So yeah, it's a really weird situation. But let's move into your second trade.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask, didn't you get your first share of Lance this week? What's Lance going for now, kind of based off that?
I ended up not pulling the trigger. I know we talked about it a little bit. So I was somebody offered me Lance for the 109.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was gonna take it, but yeah, I don't have any Lance shares, and I thought that was a very fair offer. But just with where that roster was, I didn't really want to add any more risks to it, so figured I'd just keep the pick and shop it during the draft. But yeah,
gotcha. Oh, cool, makes sense. All right, well, here's another one. Actually, I don't know if you want another Herbert or not, but it was Herbert for Dak, Howell, and the 106.
Herbert for Dak, who?
And then Howell, Sam Howell.
Yep,
and
Howell
the 106. And this is in a start 2 QB league.
Yeah, I leaned the Dak side on that one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because I think the 106, I like that range in rookie drafts right now. That's where you're talking about your, Jackson Smith and Jigba's, your Will Levis's, or your Gibbs. Yeah. And then I still think Dak is a good fantasy quarterback. I think he's going to put up numbers still in that offense. I don't see any reason why he's not their, option for the next few years. Maybe they don't keep him past this contract, but I don't know. I mean, can you really get rid of Dak? I mean, he's still a good quarterback.
I was surprised it was taken because I feel like everyone's super low on Dak except for in a startup still for whatever reason. But
yeah,
I haven't been able to sell Dak anywhere, which is interesting. The guy that accepted the trade too was like, the Mike McCarthy taking over kind of scares the heck out of me, right? So I'm not sure how you feel about that, but I think Dak's going to be fine. But
Yeah. I think we're going to get kind of same old Dak in that offense. It's not like Kellen Moore was lighting the world on fire towards the end of his tenure there. So, it'll be interesting to see how that goes, but he still has the weapons. Technically, I think an upgrade at running back, especially in passing situations. And then, who knows what they do in the draft? Maybe they get another wide receiver. Maybe they, I know they brought in Brandon Cooks, right? If I remember right.
For Dallas.
Yeah. So,
Kirk's, yeah.
Maybe they bring in another running back, maybe they bring in another wide receiver, but I just think that offense is still good, and I think it's going to be good. So, yeah, I like that side personally.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. I had an embarrassment of riches. Still have the 105 there. Have Herbert and Mahomes now, and Lamar. So, in the two QBs. So, I guess it was a shorter bench too. I guess so.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a good one. Let's see. Well, let me ask you. I mean, I made a pretty menial trade, I guess, to get Paris Campbell. Recently signed with the New York Giants. So, what are your thoughts as a Giants fan about Paris Campbell?
It's pretty interesting because he essentially got a prove it deal, which I like for the Giants and as a Giants fan. I think he's a good player. It's just the injuries with him. If he can stay healthy for a season, I think he could find a role in that offense and make it his own. The talent in that wide receiver room is not really there. I still think Sterling Shepard is the one going into the year, if that tells you anything. So
if he's healthy and Robinson's healthy,
and he can't stay healthy for a season. He's essentially a coach at this point. So
Waller's not the one. You don't think Waller's the one?
Well, yeah. I just mean for the wide receivers, but as pass catching options, Waller's definitely the number one pass catcher in that offense. But as far as the wide receivers go, I think if he can step in and really cement himself as a wide receiver one in that offense, then I think there's going to be a major role for him. I think he can do a little bit of everything, which I think some people kind of peg him as a slot guy, but I think there's a world where he can do a little bit of be a little bit more of a versatile player for them, especially with guys like Wan'Dale Robinson, which they really want him in a particular role there. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, but it is a prove it deal. So, it's tough to expect much out of him. What did you give up for him?
It was Noah Gray. Kelsey's backup. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I like him, if Kelsey's gone in a year or two, who knows what happened, right? I mean, he's playing I think he's sneaky. So if you're on a, small bench, he might be out there just because he was playing over half the snaps pretty much all year, which I think is interesting because I don't like any of the wide receiver weapons in Kansas City. So, I mean, gosh, who they have? It's MVS, right? And I mean, Mecole's gone.
Kadarius Toney,
which I guess I do like Kadarius Toney too, right? So, we'll see. I guess that kind of leads me into my next one is I can't think of a better place for segue into DeAndre Hopkins talk. Apparently his cap is like 20 something million.
Yeah.
So no one's pretty much wanting to give up anything to trade for him. And so if no one gives up anything, then he's probably going to be cut. Right.
Yep.
I know Kansas City's like always the standard answer, but is there anybody else who could utilize a wide receiver like Hopkins more than Kansas City, just considering the rest of their room and kind of the inexperience there, I guess you could say? I don't know. Any other places that came into your mind?
There's so many places that he could go. And I think it would be a pretty ridiculous year for him to hit the open market because you would think he would get paid because there's not really any prominent named wide receivers in the draft with his profile. So anybody that's looking for that dominant X wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins is your guy, and you're not really finding any alternative options that you feel comfortable going into the year with as your number one X. So we spoke about the Giants. The Giants need one of those. You could talk about teams like the Patriots, teams like anybody really. I don't think there's many teams that wouldn't improve with him on their roster. Just because his skill set is so special.
So I'm looking at cap space. I'm looking at cap space right now as far as cap space left, right? So the Bears are still at the top. Panthers are still at the top. Lions, Packers, Cardinals.
Yeah, Packers would be a good one.
Colts, man, Eagles are up there. Wow, that's crazy. Texans, Bengals, then Falcons. Wow, actually,
The Texans would be interesting, especially with just the whole narrative of him going back to Houston. I don't know if he would do that, but it's a whole new regime and stuff, so you never know.
Yeah, especially if with a new quarterback and stuff, right? New regime,
Yeah.
new quarterback.
Yeah, imagine them taking Bryce Young and giving him a safety blanket like DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, that's what you want, man. That's what you want for your rookie quarterback.
I mean, so this says the Giants only have they're third to last as far as cap room, as far as I'm tracking. It says they've got just over 2 million in cap room. Chiefs only have 4. So,
yeah, but you got to take that with a grain of salt too, because there's definitely some restructuring that could happen. To make room on some of these rosters, make cap space rather.
I'm just wondering if oh shoot, what was I going to say? And I guess this can segue into that another most recent news, but I mean, OBJ got 15 million, and dude hasn't played in over a year. Right?
Yeah, and they're saying that with the bonuses and everything,
it's up to 18.
It's almost guaranteed at 18.
Wow, that's crazy.
So,
and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they said it's essentially an $18 million contract with the way his bonuses are set up. So, yeah, it's a pretty big contract. But I think that also was maybe a deal that was maybe more of a message to Lamar Jackson than anything.
Yeah. You think Lamar's back now because of it?
I think so. There's reports coming out that he was a part of the process, with in the recruitment of Odell, and if he's recruiting Odell to the Ravens, he's going back to the Ravens. Like, I think this is one of those things that they're just trying to figure things out, but both parties probably know it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
Do you think he works out a long-term or a multi-year deal though, or do you think he just plays on the tag because it's only 1 year with Odell and then kind of sees what they have to offer?
Yeah, that's the question. So I think definitely, you rule out him sitting out the season.
Yeah,
completely.
Yeah,
but yeah, I would like to think that maybe that means they'll get something worked out. But yeah, there's always a possibility that it's just for this 1 year and then they try to figure things out next year again, or maybe he moves on. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, it'll definitely be interesting. Cool.
Yeah. So one of the trades you texted me earlier today was that Dobbins for the 111. What were you thinking when you made that move?
I honestly didn't make that move. So this is just one I saw that I thought was interesting.
Okay.
Was Dobbins for 111, and I was actually listening to another podcast, and they were talking about Dobbins or the 110, and folks were taking the 110 over Dobbins, which I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think Dobbins definitely showed something we've finally been waiting to see. Need him to stay more healthy, right? I think he came back a little bit too soon and got hurt again. So, but I don't know, especially with Lamar coming back, right? I think he'll have that role secured. And he's got Gus there, Gus Bus just took a pay cut. So I'm not too worried about it, but I'm firmly on the Dobbins side, I would say right now, but I'm really curious to see what happens with this draft class. If we get lots of RBs going in the second round, I could see, the back half of the first round getting really interesting.
Yeah, that's the toughest part of assigning value to these running backs right now, especially these guys that haven't really come out of the gate and produced in a big way. This running back class is really good. I really like it. It's really deep. So, you have guys that are going to be drafted in the third, even fourth round that are going to step in and do a job for a team. And Baltimore could be one of those teams, So if that is the case, I think that's a big hit on Dobbins. He's just very unreliable. And we can sit here for years and years and years and just be saying, man, this guy's a talent.
What if, right?
Next year he's going to put it together. But, it's never been the year he puts it together, thus far. So, yeah, it's tough for me. I think 110, I'm firmly at the 110, 111. Yeah, that's a bit of a toss-up for me. If this tells you anything, we are in round 7 of a startup right now in the Patreon, in our newest Patreon league, which is Patreon 17.
That's crazy. We have that many. I can't believe it. I was so shocked when you said 17. I was like, holy crap, I can't believe we're there.
It's freaking nuts. And Jesse's in this one. Memphis is in this one. I'm in this one. Neil, some Aussies are in this one. It's a really fun league. A lot of good guys in it. And Dobbins is still there. We're at the seventh round, the third pick of the 7th round, and Dobbins is still there. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. What running backs have gone before him?
Ramondre Stevenson, Javonte Williams, DeAndre Swift, Jacobs, Eckler, Damian Pierce.
Did
Pollard,
Eckler go after
Harris.
Pierce?
Yeah. Wait, let me see. Let me make sure. No, Eckler went before Pierce. Yeah,
okay,
he went to pick before Pierce. Yeah, running backs are pretty depreciated in this league right now. Everybody's kind of holding off on them, so it was just quarterback heavy. If it tells you anything, Daniel Jones went in the 3rd round. So, yeah,
jeez.
Yeah, the Patreon. I've been in some of these Patreon leagues, and quarterbacks go so fast.
It's the quarterback thirst.
The quarterbacks go so fast. So I went 0 quarterback in this draft almost. I took my first quarterback at the end of the 4th round, which in the Patreon, that's 0 quarterback.
Who'd you take?
I took Kirk Cousins.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then I took Geno at the end of the 6th. So,
okay, yeah, that's not bad. Wow,
but
crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. Guys like Jordan Love are going in the 6th round. So,
wow,
yeah. Oof. It's nuts. I guess you gotta go with the flow in this one.
Yeah, risk it for the biscuit too. Jeez Louise.
No kidding, man. Yeah, so it's interesting. Some of these players are going lower than I thought they would go. As far as the wide receiver position goes, guys like Devonta Smith went, towards the end of the 4th. He went at 4.8.
Wow.
Yeah. So, really weird to me, especially looking at this wide receiver class and how some of these rookies are not being very hyped up other than Jackson Smith and Jigba. So I wanted to play a little game here and just figure out, where we would rank Jackson Smith and Jigba in this class, or in the last class of rookies. So we say, guys like Chris Olave, guys like Jameson Williams, those kind of guys. So the first one off the board here was, of course, Garrett Wilson.
Yeah,
So
I'd put him behind Garrett Wilson for sure.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the next guy was Chris Olave.
Yeah, I'd put him behind Olave.
Okay. What about Drake London?
I mean, this is where I think the draft capital comes into play, right? To see where he goes. As far as where JSN goes.
Let's just assume that, I think the median's probably somewhere around 14, 15, right? So let's say somewhere around that range, the mid-teens.
I might put him behind London. I don't like it, but I'm going to do it.
What about Jameson Williams?
No, ahead of Jameson. Yeah.
Okay. And then what about Treylon Burks?
Ahead of Burks. Pretty easy, too.
Last one we'll do here. What about Pickens?
Yeah, I'd have him ahead of Pickens. It's surprising how close they are, but I think I'd probably have Pickens, frankly, ahead of Jameson.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. And I think him and JSN, I don't know how similar they could be. I feel like that could be a similar area based off of what they've done, right? But I just haven't seen Jameson do anything, and I think I like JSN more as a prospect than I did Jameson, right? So,
really? No, I think Jameson's a much better prospect. But for me personally, I thought Jameson Williams was the best prospect in the class. If he wasn't injured, he was by far, I think, the best wide receiver. The injury was the only thing that was dragging him down for me. And I think a lot of NFL scouts.
So where do you have JSN?
So for me personally, kind of like you said, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, definitely ahead of him. I also have Jameson Williams ahead of him. And then I have him right ahead of Traylon Burks, and then I have George Pickens after Traylon Burks.
Okay. Yeah, see, I might have Pickens ahead of Burks, but I don't hate Burks. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the situation is kind of shitty for Burks, but I think with Ryan Tannehill back, it helps that a little bit. I just think with Malik, it was so bad.
Awful.
There was nobody was going
pass.
to do well. Yeah,
Yeah.
nobody was going to do well in that offense. And I'm not the biggest Traylon Burks fan. I think I drafted him in this startup draft, but this would be my absolute first share. Like I did not take him into any rookie drafts at all. So not a huge fan, but I do think that he's being depreciated more and more just because his rookie year wasn't, excellent. But I just don't think anybody was going to do well there. So yeah. And then the same with Jameson Williams. Like Jameson Williams, I think for me, he was the best prospect in that class at the wide receiver position, but he was injured, and we knew that. So that was kind of the reason, he was there at that 106, 107 or wherever you were able to get him in rookie drafts. And you kind of came into the year knowing he probably wasn't going to come in and produce because, he was going to have this injury. So now I think this is his real rookie year essentially, but he's had a year with the playbook. He knows the offense. He's, the same quarterback is coming back in Jared Goff after a really good season. And yeah, I think he's primed to have a really good year this season. So
nice. Now, where would you put your wide receiver 2 in this class, or 2 or 3, with the 2022 rookies?
Yeah, so
are they behind everyone else?
No, my wide receiver 2 this year is probably right in line with George Pickens.
Okay.
Excuse me, sorry. And that's Zay Flowers.
Zay Flowers. Okay, I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Yep.
Interesting. I know there's a lot of talk going around the league about him kind of rising up boards and possibly going in the first round now. So I like that. Expected. Yeah,
I think he's going to go well into the first round. I mean, I think he's probably going to end up somewhere in the teens. That's just how I see him. But and I think a lot of teams could use a player with his skill set. I think he's just he's a smaller body, but I think he can do a lot of things that NFL teams want right now. So yeah, I think he's going to be good in a lot of offenses.
Nice.
Take over for me a second. My throat is like.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. Hey, so I was going to kind of transfer over into some trading strategies. I think this being the Dynasty offseason, we've had more trading probably than maybe happens during your regular season as far as Dynasty League goes. So I came up with 16 rules of trading that I live by, but I wanted to ask you as well, like what are some I guess strategies or things that have happened to help you get trades done this offseason?
Yeah, man, I think it's really just kind of about communication for me, and I know a lot of people like to just send offers and either be like, reject, accept, or counter, and that's really it. But yeah, man, I just like to send a message and just tell people what I was thinking, kind of briefly, and see what their thoughts are on it. And I think I've been able to get a lot more deals done that way. I'm don't have the most time on my hands to do a lot of chatting with people, but take 5-10 minutes out of my day to chat with people, and I've been getting a lot of deals done this offseason that way. So that's just something I've always liked to do. But yeah, for me, that's a big one.
No, that's a good one. I like one of my rules. I guess I'll go to it's rule number 6 for me is identifying your team's strengths and then identifying other teams' weaknesses and kind of using that in your trading strategy. And so what I like to do is I know it's on Sleeper. I don't know if everybody uses it, but it's got kind of the trade block grid as far as where each team is kind of its own column. And I like to look at that to be like, hey, I'm a little heavy on tight ends or whatever the case may be. And then I scroll over and see like, who's maybe hurting at tight ends or something like that. If there's a tight end I'm looking to get rid of or whatever the case might be. And then I reach out to that person and be like, hey, I'm selling this tight end. Are you interested in? You looked a little, lagging at tight end. Are you interested in trading for a starter or something like that? And kind of use that to start the conversation. So,
Yeah. I think
one of the
that's
hacks I
a
do.
really good idea. Yeah, my biggest turnoff in trading with people is when somebody sends me an offer that absolutely makes zero sense for my team, and it's like very blatantly obvious. Like they try to send me, let me think, like Aaron Rodgers, and I, am a
A
rebuild with like
rebuild.
10 picks, and
Yeah,
like, my quarterbacks are like 23 years old.
yeah,
And I have like absolutely have a non-competitive roster. That's a huge turnoff for me, and I don't even really engage with those people because you're so far away at that point, it doesn't even make sense. So yeah. Whereas like if somebody obviously is trying to make an effort and say, hey, I saw your team kind of needed this, or I thought your team might need this, then yeah, you're more apt to kind of work with them and see what you can get done.
yeah. I think too, kind of going along those same lines, and I don't think it's used enough in sleeper, but I kind of like it. Is if because I'm not much of a talker anymore. I used to be a talker, explainer, spent way too much time doing that, right? So,
Yeah.
um, but I really like that you're able to like players, right? So, say someone comes at me and says like, "Hey, what are you willing? What do you want for Mahomes?" Say or something like that, and be like, "Well." I'll respond and be like, "Hey, it's going to be a lot, but I'm going to go like the players that I would be interested in acquiring if you were going to try to get Mahomes, right?" And then they'll get the notifications, assuming they have them turned on, of, "Hey, Casper liked this player and this player, this player, this player, and this player." That way, they
Yep.
know like, "Hey, he's interested in you know Lance, Burks, London, Brees Hall." Pitts or whatever the case might be, and then it kind of puts the onus on them, right? Because they were the one that kind of came forward in the first place, being like, interested in someone. I think it kind of peeves me when someone comes at me asking, what it would take for this guy, and then I tell them who I like, and then they want me to build the trade. I'm like, bro, you came asking. I'm not asking. So, like, no one's ever untradeable for me. That's one of my rules too. So,
Yeah, for
but
sure.
sometimes I'm gonna make you put in the work. So,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, every time somebody asks me what players I like, I'm like, I like every player at a certain value,
yeah, right.
every single one of them. So, yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? Like, I never have a player that is off limits as long as somebody's willing to pay the price, or um, you know, somebody has a guy available. Maybe I don't believe in them as a player, but yeah, my corresponding price will let that be known. So, yeah, it's definitely a good one. There is a lot of kind of quarterback talk with these four guys coming out, maybe even five, right? We're talking about Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, and then of course the fifth, which is the big question mark here in Hooker.
Hooker.
Yeah, so let's say Hooker goes in the first round, right? And let's say he goes in like the teens, right? Like let's say he goes 14, 15. We have some mock drafts mocking him as high as sixth, fifth right
Oh my
now.
gosh! Wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
So there's reports coming out that some teams like him, better than Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. So yeah, it's very interesting what's happening with Hooker right now. But I'm in this startup with these other with these other patrons, and it's kind of got my gears going with where we should be ranking these quarterbacks. And they seem to be grouped together, right? These four seem to be grouped together, right there, kind of ahead of Daniel Jones in that kind of in between spot of like the really elite guys and the next tier of guys that are, you know, like they're good QB
Serviceable,
twos,
kind of
yeah,
like, yeah.
that have QB1 upside. Uh, but let's say Hooker goes in the first round. Where do you put these guys for you personally?
Golly, I mean,
Like, where are you taking
like
them in
where do I put him with
startups?
the other QBs?
Yeah, like where are
Set.
you taking them in startups here? So, we're doing a separate rookie draft, so they weren't really available in here. But
Okay.
um, I'll tell you the first 2 rounds we had, of course, like the usual suspects, and then the last guys were in the second round, Tua, Dak, and then Kyler, right? And then the next set of guys is, of course, like, your Daniel Joneses, your Kenny Pickett's, Russell Wilson's, those kind of guys.
Yeah, I think I'd put a majority of them behind I'd put Hooker definitely behind Daniel Jones if he's picked in the first round. I think I'd put him behind Russ. I might put him ahead of Pickett if he's picked as early as 5 or 6. Like that would be really saying something. But if he's like last pick of the first, I guess maybe I'd put him behind Pickett. I don't know, right? And it's obviously team build dependent during the draft as well, right? If I was like you and going the 0 QB route, if I don't think I'm a contender this year, Hooker is definitely someone I'm taking a shot on. But if I'm someone with a lot of vets and stuff, unless it's like my third or fourth QB, I probably wouldn't be taking Hooker. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely couldn't take him ahead of Russ. I'm trying to think, but like Kirk Cousins level, like if he's a first round pick, I think around Kirk is fair.
Yeah,
it scares the
really
hell out of me, but fair.
So DTC's quarterback rankings, right? They have CJ Stroud ahead of Tua, and behind Dak, right? So they have CJ Stroud at QB 12, and then they have Bryce Young at 14, right behind Tua. So it goes CJ Stroud, Tua, then Bryce Young. Then they have Anthony Richardson, then Will Levis, then Kirk Cousins, then Goff, then Daniel Jones. But I just thought it was real interesting that all these guys are really, really, really kind of grouped together there. And then if Hooker was to go in the first round, like, let's say the teens, kind of where Josh Allen went in that 12 to 15 range, right? Like, where are we slotting him right in with those guys? Or are we slotting him, maybe in the, I don't know, late teens, I think DTC kind of has Daniel Jones ranked a little bit low just because of
I think it's low too. I don't know why. I was going to say, I don't know why you'd take Goff over him with the rushing with Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I think Goff is coming off of a big year. Goff is coming off of a big year. Kirk is also coming off of a big year. So I can kind of get that. Because I think Kirk was like QB 6 or something.
Oh wow, yeah.
I know he was a middling QB 1. I don't know the exact number, and I think Goff was around there as well. QB 1 status. So I get it. But Daniel Jones is also up there. So, and then I think Daniel Jones' floor with the rushing upside is maybe a little bit safer than those guys, even though he has less talent around him. So yeah, it's interesting, but I'm not going to argue with it heavily. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where these guys go and how they slot in. It's kind of a mess right now, but there's just an abundance of quarterbacks that all have QB1 upside. You're talking about guys well into, QB 20, up into QB 20 that have QB1 upside.
I was gonna say, Lance is probably somewhere in there too, right?
Yeah, he's QB 21. Right? You have Geno Smith QB 25. What did Geno finish like? QB, let me look that up right quick.
I know he's top 12, right?
Yeah, I think he was QB 5. So Geno was QB 5.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's the reason I went 0 QB in this draft, because I ended up with Kirk and Geno, and then I have the 104 in the rookie draft. So I'm able to get one of these kind of these rookie quarterbacks, whether that be Anthony Richardson or Will Levis, however that shakes out. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy the amount of potential QB1 guys. Matt Stafford at QB 28 right now.
Wow. Yeah. He's one I have a lot of from last year. I guess the year before too, as well, when they won the Super Bowl. I guess I kind of hung on. I don't know how much more he'll do after this year, but I think he'll be able to have a good heavy passing volume year. At least one more. Yeah. Before maybe the wheels fall off.
Yeah, I mean, do you ever remember a year with QB this deep?
No.
I mean, I've been playing Dynasty a long time, and this blows my mind. I could never, I've never I've never thought of QB being something that I can just really wait on in a super flex league, and feel very comfortable with it. And this is the first year where I'm like, man, give me Mac Jones at QB 27. Give me.
Yeah, right. I mean, last year he was probably top 15, right?
Yeah.
If not higher. So wow.
I'm good with Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, and Mac Jones. And then, if it doesn't work out, then going and taking a QB next year with your Mays and everything coming out. So I mean,
those are guys that aren't going to lose a whole lot of. Some of them aren't going to lose a whole lot of value either. Like if Mac bombs again, right? But we know what Kirk is. We've seen Geno's high. We've also seen his low. So as long as he stays somewhere in the middle, I think he'll still keep value. So it's really it is an interesting game.
I think this is just a year for me that if you're not getting one of those top 9 guys for me, then I'm kind of waiting. If you have one of those first 9 picks or whatever, then go ahead and take your elite quarterback. But if not, then I mean I'm not reaching for any of these guys. I'll just wait. So, I just thought that was a kind of interesting thing happening this year.
It's interesting. Hey, QBs run the world, run the fantasy world now. So that's how it is.
So is there any kind of thing happening with the draft here that you're keeping your eye on as far as any new reports, any kind of new rumors happening?
No, I mean with rumor season, I just like to see where the teams that the prospects are visiting, right? So how many of them are actually getting the in-person interviews? I'm really curious to see if Vegas trades up to draft to QB. I know, what's his name? McDaniels went pretty hard in the paint for Tebow back in the day, right? So I could see them making a pretty rash move to, go up to get a Richardson or something like that. His second Florida QB that he would draft in the first round. So that one kind of intrigues me. As a Broncos fan, I'm kind of bummed because we don't have a pick until the second round, or the third round, I think, beginning of the third round. So a lot of these big names probably aren't going to be there. But we are looking for a QB or QB running back. I don't think they're going to stick with just P. Ryan and Javonte if Javonte is coming back slow. So I know they've been bringing some of the RBs in. So I'd be curious to see who they get and how much they actually invest in it. So big news though, John Elway is no longer part of the Denver Broncos organization. Not sure if you saw that or not. So obviously he was just in an advising role last year after they hired Peyton, the GM, not the head coach. But he is officially, his contract is up with Denver and he's ready to move on to bigger and better things. So thank you, John Elway, for all you did as a player and as a GM. You got us one Super Bowl as well. So also made some blunders, right?
Quarterbacks he drafted for you guys.
Yeah. The best one he brought in free agency, right?
True.
I just watched the Peyton's Places that he did with John Elway as well. So that was pretty entertaining. But so I guess that's the big Broncos news that I can think of, but nothing else I've really seen. What about you?
Okay, hold on real quick. So in this startup, I'm actually on the clock right now.
Live pick.
Here in the 7th round. So I'll tell you my team real quick. Quarterback is Kirk Cousins. At wide receiver, I have no running backs. At wide receiver, I have Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown, Chris Olave, Jamison Williams, Treylon Burks. And then my super flex quarterback is Geno. So right now I'm looking at, there's 2 guys I'm thinking about. Help me choose between them. So I'm thinking about taking my first running back, which would be Nick Chubb.
And who's the other one?
Or I'm thinking about taking another wide receiver, Brandon Ayuk.
I'd go Chubb.
You go Chubb?
I would.
All right, Chubb it is.
I think that kind of makes you a really interesting contender. Wow.
So now, there it goes. Now it's Kirk Cousins, Nick Chubb, Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown, Chris Olave, Jamison Williams, Traylon Burks, and Gino.
Wow. How many flex is it? 3?
Let me see. It's 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 2 tight end, 4 flex.
4 flex. Holy crap, that's deep.
Yep. Really deep. So that's the reason I'm kind of waiting on tight end, is because it's so deep that, tight end's important, but
that wide
you're gonna need everything.
That wide receiver depth is really gonna help in all those flexes. So that's
So and then awesome. There's still some really good wide receivers on the board. Your Evan Ingrams, your Darren Wallers, Okonkwo, McBride, those kind of guys. So
I like Okonkwo.
Yeah, me too. I might try to do a little deal and trade up for a pick to get another tight end, or get my first tight end. So
nice, I like it, man. Chubb in the 8th or the 7th?
7th round.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. I guess everybody's scared of him being 27 now. So,
I don't think the offense could be worse than last year.
I think he might have his best year.
That's what I think too. Like
Cleveland Brown.
It can't get any worse, right? Like, can it? And he still had a really solid year.
So
he was like RB1 for a while.
Kareem Hunt's no longer there.
Yeah.
So, he's got nobody blocking his path now.
Yeah,
and,
right.
With Deshaun Watson, getting comfortable in the offense and everything now, you would think without a stable RB2 there, his carries are going to go up. He might see more, passing downs, because he's been a competent, player in on passing downs. It's just that, Kareem Hunt's also a really good football player. So they want him on the field sometimes. But I think this might be Chubb's best year at 27 years old. So I'm happy with it.
I'll take it. Yeah, I'll take it.
All right. But yeah, so anyways, one of the last thing I wanted to talk about here is these vets, right? So is there any guy that you are particularly worried about going into this draft? You're saying, okay, this is scaring me a little bit, having these shares of this particular player. Man, it has me on edge. I either want to get rid of them before the draft, or, I'm going to sit here, cross my fingers, cross my toes, and hope I don't get screwed.
So I can't think of a whole lot that come off the top of my head. One of them is Ramondre, who I like a lot, but I don't think he's going to get the same passing volume no matter what. And if they but they never seem to take an RB high. If they did, that would kind of scare the crap out of me a little bit. Pollard needs a compliment, so I feel like that doesn't scare me a whole lot.
But if they take Bijan, that's not a compliment.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not.
Yeah.
So I don't have many shares of Pollard left, if any. So, golly, I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
I think Pollard was a big one for me, because all of these, mock drafts have been having the Cowboys take Bijan. And that would absolutely obliterate his value.
Yeah, and he's pretty high up there. I heard he's like the RB8 or something like that in redraft, or somewhere near there, if not higher, which is not crazy if he's by himself, right? With Malik Davis and whatever scrubs are behind him. Isaiah Pacheco, I think. Oh, sorry. Those are, I guess they're not really vets. They're just like younger late round guys that I think.
Yeah, we'll call them vets.
Out.
Anybody that's not a rookie, right?
Like Algier and Pacheco scared the crap out of me, right? Like they really need to avoid draft night. And I just think the talent is too deep at running back for teams to not take a chance on someone to compete or share with them, right? So Algier and Pacheco definitely freaked me out a little bit. Obviously, mix in with this whole deal. If they draft someone else high, he's obviously got the off the field stuff going on. But if they draft a second round guy to kind of replace Mixon, that could scare the crap out of me as well. I don't know. Anybody you can think of kind of off the top of your head?
Yeah. So There's a few for me. I think you touched on a lot of the big ones, which is your Tony Pollards. Mostly in the running back position, but one of the guys that really worries me as far as them not taking, maybe not worries me, but I would like for them to take another player to maybe free up some space for him to operate. Stephon Diggs, I think. I think their wide receiver 2 is just not really. It's not really working with Gabe Davis. They need a wide receiver 2. I think defenses are, going to start focusing on Diggs at some point. I mean, I think this is going to be his last year with the team. There's always been question marks on whether, not always, but the last year or so, there's been a lot of question marks on if he really wants to be there or not. Coming off a wide receiver 4 season, I would just like them to take another wide receiver to really give him space to operate. And then also they got to get somebody, for the future for Josh Allen as well. So just the Bills taking a wide receiver, I think is very important for just the overall dynasty value of the guys in that offense, barring, guys like Gabe Davis, who not really worried about anyways. But yeah. And then, the other big one that, I'm not as concerned about happening, but who knows? Let's just have fun with it. Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens, right? What if Baltimore takes a quarterback?
What you mean? Like, what if they trade back up into the first round and take Hooker?
Yeah,
they did Lamar, right?
That
would be pretty wild.
So, I would be seriously worried about my Lamar shares with him going to a different team, where he doesn't have an offense set in place with a team that's saying, okay, we're willing to revolve our game around you. Maybe teams are smart enough to say, okay, we're going to do that. If we bring Lamar in, we have to do that. But I mean, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, you do never know, right? But I do think coaching staffs are doing a lot better job of molding their offense around the player instead of I got hired to be the head coach or the new OC. This is my offense and this is what we're going to run, right? Because I feel like with Jalen Hurts, like obviously adapted it really well to him, right? But when I think of like the Broncos when they won the Super Bowl, even like the Gary Payton offense or the Gary Payton, oh gosh, now I can't think of the freaking offensive coordinator.
Was it Kubiak?
Kubiak, yeah. The Kubiak offense was not good for Peyton Manning. Like it was awful. Yeah. Obviously, but now we're talking like 8 years ago. So I think coaching staffs have gotten better with it. I would think if you bring on someone like Lamar, like you can't just be like, okay, Lamar, like come be a drop back passer for us because that's what we want you to do.
Yep.
Like they've seen what his strengths and what his weaknesses are, right? So, and I mean, as a Broncos fan, that's my optimism with Sean Payton, right? Is he knows what Russell's strengths are, and I've heard him even quoted with Colin Cowherd saying, he needs to be playing basketball out there. That's kind of Russ's game. It's not a super strict drop back kind of passing way for him either. He's kind of loose with it, but that's what makes him unpredictable and makes him excel. So I wouldn't be too worried with Lamar if that were to happen, because I still think he's pretty elite. But
yeah, maybe it's all my Russell Wilson shares that has me a little freaked out.
That tanked after last year, or
yeah. So anytime your elite quarterback has a change of scenery, I don't think it's the most ideal thing in the world. But yeah, maybe he goes somewhere else and they build this thing around him. And let's be honest, the Baltimore Ravens don't have the best supporting cast. During the Lamar Jackson era. So, yeah, I mean, maybe it would be a good thing. But, yeah, that's of course, kind of outlandish. Yeah, I think we kind of touched on everybody that I was really thinking about. Cool. One guy I wanted to talk about a little bit was Saquon Barkley. Because I think not enough people are acknowledging that this could be Saquon's last year in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And if the Giants were to take a quarterback or were to take a running back behind Saquon, I think it would be a really good year to invest in the player, whichever player that is that they pick. Let's say they take somebody in the 3rd or 4th round. Everybody sees Saquon Barkley as one of the few, 3-down running backs. They're just going to stay on the field no matter what, unless they're, huffing and puffing and they're taken out to get a little bit of a rest. But which he is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of Giants fans are nervous about them not being able to work this contract out. Saquon wants a deal upwards of $13 million a year, which is what the Giants have been willing to offer him. And I don't think they're going to offer him any more than that. And if he feels he can get a contract somewhere else, I think he hits the open market next year because they're not going to tag him again. So,
man, number one, I guess I don't know the insides. I feel like Saquon likes being there. I don't think he wants to leave, right?
Yeah, definitely.
If that's what they're willing to offer, like honestly, if he's getting more than 10 a year with like this incoming RB class, like I think he could have a really tough time in free agency next year. I also haven't looked at the free agent running backs, but I mean we still got Fournette and Hunt are still on the market. I think those are viable starters.
Yeah.
So I mean, Fournette was a top 10 back last year, or top 12 back at least. And Hunt, it's been a while, but yeah, boy, I wouldn't like it if he didn't take it.
Yeah, so that's what that's kind of what's concerning me right now is because I don't want a 26-year-old running back on my roster that is going to see a change in scenery.
A new team, yeah.
Yep. And I definitely am interested in any running back the Giants would be willing to take in the first 4 rounds to take a flyer on, because if he does leave, I don't think they're taking a guy high. I think they're going with the guys they have on their roster.
Yeah.
So, that's my thoughts on that. I kind of wanted to just get that out there. What do you think? Who would you want? Who would you want the Giants to pick if they were to pick a running back in the 3rd or 4th round?
I mean, I know you'd want him to take Sean Tucker, right?
Yeah, that's my guy. I would love him to take Sean Tucker.
I mean, even 3rd round, like not.
I would love it, man.
Not
3rd round, I would love it.
Possibility. That's Syracuse is in New York, right? So
yep.
Why not? There you go.
Yep. That's part of it too. My dad went to Syracuse and watched a lot of Syracuse football growing up. Watched a lot of Syracuse football with Tucker there, and Tucker is the only reason you would be watching Syracuse football, to be honest with you.
Yeah, right.
But I really like Sean Tucker a lot, and that would be the dream scenario for me personally. But I think there's a lot of good options out there. I mean, I think a guy like Spears, right? He would be a really interesting option there.
Spears,
Tank Bigsby would be an interesting one.
Bigsby, probably what Jesse would have said if he were here. So
I think there's going to be a lot of interesting options, but I think it's going to be the perfect storm where if the Giants were to take a running back, it would tank their value enough because Saquon is there on the franchise tag. People are not going to be thinking that guy's getting really any chance to see the field. And you're going to be able to get him late.
Yeah. It would just, it would suck, right, if you take that, like especially Sean Tucker did go there and then they work out a 2 or 3 year deal. And then you're like, oh, man.
Yeah.
You're there with Saquon, but maybe they give him some rest,
But then maybe you see a Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard situation.
Yeah.
So, anyways, well, hopefully not, because that Zeke contract was absolutely brutal. But
yeah, right. He's a free agent too, still. So.
Yeah, right. Anyways, man, I think this is a good point to end this thing.
Yeah, hey, is it cool if I shout out some of the people in the comments? Had a whole lot of comments from my cadets, so
of course, yeah, man, do it.
Yeah, so we got Hadir, we got Tran, who left lots of emojis that apparently StreamYard can't tell us about. Manny, hopefully he copied some stuff. Mike Kenny, probably wondering what the hell was going on in the chat tonight. We got Kyle Nelson, Connor, Drippy hat. I do love my A&M hat I got. Simi, one of my favorite cadets. She did go to CA selection recently. Sadly, did not get selected, but she'll go back as a lieutenant. Had a great time.
Nice.
Manny, Simi, Quinteros. He's a tool. Hardaway. Rodriguez.
He's a tool. Did you just call him? That's a tool.
Oh yeah. I call him all sorts of things. Ortiz Smith, Pimentel. Other guys didn't leave their names. Bertie, fix your rucksack. And whoever Easel is, I don't know who that is, but I look up what he wanted me to say, and it's apparently I'm a jerk. So I don't know if that's in Spanish or what. Or you're a jerk. Su Babaca. Say Su Babaca. I assume that's your jerk. I don't know. I don't speak Spanish. So, but on that, thank you, Texas A&M cadets, for listening. You should subscribe to our podcast, rate 5 stars, like this on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. Get us up there, all right? We're good.
Yeah,
guys.
thanks for joining us, guys.
Good group of guys. All right.
All right. I'm Chad Mendoza. This is
I'm
Mike Casper with the Dynasty WarGames signing off here. Thanks for joining us.